a choice and he didn't have to come if he didn't want to. A few minutes later, the BF's car came roaring down the road, skidding to a stop in front of my car, and 3 guys jumped out of the car. The BF stayed in the driver's seat. I started my car as these guys came aggressively towards it, screaming something and throwing stuff at it. Thinking that these guys were attacking me, and with my daughter in the back seat, feeling scared of what was going to happen, I began moving forward as there was an opening on the sidewalk in front of the BF's car. As I started moving, he moved forward, pushing his bumper into the side of my car, leaving a long scratch down the side of my car and a slight indent. With my adrenaline pumping, I took off. What I found out later was that the whole thing was planned out. They convinced my son to tell me he wouldn't go with me while the boyfriend and his friends waited down the street. My son was instructed to send them a text when I got there. Evidently, what they were throwing at my car were copies of several court documents that needed to be served on me. After I left the daycare location, they called the police and filed a report that I had tried to run over my boyfriend's brother. I also contacted the police to file a report for the damage to my car, but the police basically said that if I filed a report, then they, the boyfriend and his friends, were also filing a report for assault with a deadly weapon. The weapon was the car, and based on the fact that I was alone and they had 4 witnesses, it wasn't likely to be favorable to me. Literally, I was in court over various support and custody issues and DVRO filings a couple times a month for 2 years, if not more. For the record, the DVRO was their attempt to get me to look like a violent bad guy in court. They also tried filing several cases with CPS. All of the CPS cases were dismissed as unfounded, and the DVRO was cancelled when I showed proof that they were showing up to places where they knew I would be, such as my son's soccer practices and games on my weekends. I was co-coaching and would skip games when it wasn't my weekend because of the DVRO. But once again, my son was included in everything. He knew the details of my ex's side of the DVRO filing, which showed me as a violent jerk. I kept telling my ex that she needed to stop including the kids in the stuff we were going through. I never said anything in front of the kids, except if they said something that they had heard. Then I would respond as simply as I could. Most of the time I would just say, that's between your mom and I, you shouldn't be involved in that. I sent email after email warning my ex that the more she included the kids, the more it hurt my relationship with them now. But what is it going to do to the kids later in life? I warned her that she was going to absolutely ruin her relationship with the kids when all the stress and crap she had included them in came to a head. And at some point, they will realize none of her statements were true and her actions were pure evil. The summer before my son's freshman year, I was awarded 50-50 custody through the summer, and if everything went well, then it would continue through the following school year. As was my MO, I would file for a change of support at the same time as filing for a custody hearing, and if nothing changed in the custody hearing, I would cancel the support hearing. At the support hearing, support was modified from the previous $1,000 a month to $100 a month, but she also had to repay the previous few months based on when the hearings were scheduled and when custody changed. We went back and forth a couple times, and she, her boyfriend, remember, all communication was actually with him, tried to get me to agree to all these silly terms, like if I said anything they didn't like, they could revert support back to me owing her $1,000 a month, not legal. When I refused to agree to their crazy stipulations, they went and filed another modification. Support services changed several of their policies based on our back and forth filings. They no longer allow a modification application within 6 months of a court ruling. They also no longer assist in filings in which the recipient decides to attempt any kind of collection on their own. My ex was upset that I had been awarded support, and she filed 7 counts of contempt of court or an order to show cause when support services refused to.